Scott Parker, sacked this morning. Maybe, Paul, some of the comments that he made about recruitment or lack of it didn't help him. So you know what you're in here? You're in what they call with Jordan White the Coliseum of Confrontation. What's your take on Parker's sacking?
Well, it's always difficult to talk about other clubs. It's difficult enough running your own club without getting into the detail of others. But obviously it's a big call from Bournemouth this morning. Scott's a very highly rated coach. I don't know him personally, but I know a lot of people that do who rate him very highly. But obviously it was a very difficult day for them at the weekend, and those sort of defeats can land very badly, not just with fans, but obviously in boardrooms as well. But I don't know the ins and outs of it, Jim, so I can't really comment specifically, but it's a big call.
I mean, stability is hard to achieve, and yet you guys seem to have achieved it at Brighton for the time being. We'll get to that shortly. But again, Paul, and I'm not going to push you, but I will flag this up. Before the season started, maybe he made a rod for his own back to a degree by saying, look, we're way short of where we need to be. That's just very clear. And Simon, this is something you've pinpointed. Yeah. You might think it, but don't say it. That's your take on it.
Well, my take on it is your relationship is with your owner, and the intermediary in the middle of it is the chief executive. And there will be a direction that you have to go on. If the owners and the chief executive are telling you one thing, and it's completely different to what they're actually doing, then by all means you have the choice. You can walk, not have to work in those conditions. But if you're being told something and you agree, and you reluctantly have to agree to it, and you don't like the situation, but you accept the parameters of it, you have to get on with it. And I'm interested, you know, from your point of view, you've not really had that with managers at Brighton too much, have you, in terms of your relationship with managers in previous places where, maybe you did at Tottenham, but your managers have pretty much understood where they are and what's expected from them. And I'm not wrong, Paul. I mean, I was an owner, you're a chief executive. There is a difference between the two, but the bottom line is we're still on a straight line. You would expect your manager, if he's told that there is a certain amount, and he might not be happy with it, but it is what it is, you really don't expect them, or wouldn't be too appreciative of them, going out in the media and saying something different, would you?
I think communication's critical. The guys at Bournemouth I know very well. They're very good people. Jeff Mostyn, Neil Blake, very good people. I think communication at any stage of the season is critical, but particularly pre-season, and particularly on the back of a promotion. When we got promoted, we were very clear with Chris Hughton about what we could afford, what we couldn't afford, what we had in terms of our expectations. And I think if those expectations change, you've then got an obligation as well to make sure the manager knows that. But these things are, as you know, Simon, are very, very difficult to manage in the heat at the moment. What Scott may or may not have said after the game on Saturday, you can understand in the emotion of a game, and particularly one where you've been beaten that heavily. I'm sure he was very disappointed with the result as well as the performance. But of course, they were up against one of the best teams in the world. So
I maintain my position that he didn't get sacked for getting beat by Liverpool 9-0. I think he got sacked for the background noise during the pre-season, before the season. And the journalists won't help him, but he's got to help himself. He's a big boy. If he's going to be a manager, he's got to learn when to speak and when to be quiet. And ultimately, to keep on banging the same drum when clearly you can... I mean, I don't know if you've seen the statement. They're quite clear. There needs to be mutual respect. So they've obviously taken it as a form of disrespect that the manager's talked out of turn. And I think he has. And I think he's earned himself the sack.
But I think looking at the situation, we said it earlier, I think he's almost spoke out knowing that he could get the sack, but he's prepared to go out like that because he wants the fans to know. You say that cynically, but I think that, Trevor. No, I know it's cynically. It looks like that, but I think there's so much hush about what's not gone on at Bournemouth. I think he wants to get it out in the open. He wants to let the players know that he wants more players. He knows. He sees them every day, every morning. Sees them training. He knows that they're not going to be competitive.
You've got to appreciate, Paul, I'm happy to prolong this conversation because the less time I speak about Brighton, the happier I'm going to be. Right?
That wasn't the deal, Simon.
But actually, Paul, on a serious note, one standout line from Maxime Demon, the Bournemouth owner, was, we must also show belief in and respect for one another. Now, I think that's a bit pointed at Scott, isn't it, for what he probably said pre-season. Having said that, in Graham Potter, you seem to have that respect for and reliance on each other. You know where you're at. Absolutely. He knows you. You know him. So is that difficult to achieve, or is it more luck than judgment that Potter turns out the way you hoped?
I think any relationship between a football club and the manager is one you have to work at. You have to get to know each other. Yeah, you have to earn respect on both sides. You have to deliver on what you promise, and again, that goes both ways. So I think you do have to spend a bit of time getting to know each other and working at the relationship. And the better that becomes, the more trust there is, the more you can give that that greater flexibility when it comes to communication. Sometimes people do miscommunicate. Sometimes people say things in the heat of the moment they don't necessarily mean in the way that they've come across. But you've also got a responsibility in our kind of job to be very, very careful with your communication and make sure that every word is measured, because you guys scrutinise it, the fans scrutinise it, it's dissected, it's taken apart limb from limb, and you've got to be very, very careful when you're in these situations what exactly you say.